So meanwhile, I'd actually been praying to Sri Radha Gopinath, please get me out of here. I don't agree 100% with what I feel here. What the guru in Australia at the time had professed that he hadn't been following the principles strictly for some time, and that didn't bother me in the least, believe me, because not all squeaky clean, So, and as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, well, Srila Prabhupada was once inquired. He said, "There's a gulf of difference between accidental fall down and premeditated fall down." And one time somebody asked of him, "So how can you tell if someone's fall down is accidental?" He said, "If they continue to engage in devotional service." And it's confirmed by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. Apichet sudaracharo parite mamananyabhak sadhu leva samantavya samyak vyahisato hisa. Even if one commits the most abominable activity, if he's engaged in devotional service, is to be considered saintly and properly situated. So that's the criteria. So it didn't bother me in the least, but I just couldn't accept the principle that everything will go on as per normal as before, and there was no adjustment in consciousness, no adjustment in anything really. It seemed to me making a little bit of committing sinful activity on the strength of the holy name. So it's one thing to sort of like admit, profess, and then change, get more serious about Krishna consciousness, or make some adjustment or something like that. But I didn't, so I was a marked man when Prajapati Prabhu was giving a class once. They said, "Look, there's just too much criticism going on here. Back off. And don't criticize devotees and all this. Somehow or another, it didn't sit well with me. It seemed like there was a bit of rationalization going on or something. So I just, stupid enough, but I just stuck up my hand. I just had to. It was just something inside me. Sorry, Prabhu, I just can't agree with what you're saying completely. Something to that effect. And I knew I was, it's only a question of time before I was going to have to decamp from that temple. But Krishna made the arrangement, and after sort of bumping around for a while, I ended up closer to New Govardhan with this sannyasi. Then I could only handle his association for about a month, because he was very, very critical of ISKCON at the time. This is close to 1986. I don't know how it was for other devotees, but for me it was like a bottoming out of the movement at that time. So then I ended up staying with Sriman Jayadharma Prabhu out in the country there between Nimbin and Lismore in a rented house for a month or so. And that was my first introduction to cow protection. I was going out collecting some cow dung one afternoon, and I found this cow lying on the ground. And I thought, oh, maybe it's going to die. So Jayadharma and myself and his son, we went out there and had a kirtan. It was like evening. And then I didn't really want to go, but I went in the morning and the cow was still alive. So I went to a neighbouring dairy farm and sort of got a bit of lucerne chaff or something like that and tried to give it to the cow, and then but anyway, I found out who the owner was. They lived on the other side of Lismore. They said, "Is it very far from the house?" And I said, "Well, yeah." He said, "Oh, that's all right." I said, "Why?" "Because it might smell when it dies." Anyway, they came out, had a look at the cow, they went up, and they came back and saw me and said, if you can fix up that cow, you can have her. So the ball was in my court. So anyway, it was a very intense time because it was a responsibility. I called the vet, and the vet came out and made an examination. He said, this cow has somehow or another slipped her spine or broken her spine, or done something, dislocated something. She'll never be able to get up again. So if you like, I can perform euthanasia. and actually I was completely shocked. My breath was completely taken away. I couldn't say a word. And then Punachandra, a young boy at the time, just maybe 5 or 6 years old, he was Jayadama's son, we were out in the paddock somewhere. He said, I'll go and ask my father and see what he says. So he went off, and the man was filling up his syringe, and then luckily he just came back. And I'm very grateful for this because it was out of my league. I was out of my depth. And Punachandra says, my father says, we'll do the needful ourselves, thank you. And the man, he put his stuff away and he says, you realise you could run foul of the Cruelty to Animals Act? And he stomped off. I paid the bill. And the cow died a few days later. And but actually, while the cow was there, I'd actually invited Lagudi from New Govardhan because he was like the expert. And, he came all the way from New Govardhan. It was a good 1.5 hour drive or something. Or an hour drive or something. And he had a look and, couldn't give much advice, but it was like a moral support. And also Muridhar turned up, and he was a cow person. He had cows, but the cow died after a few days. So then went and stayed at my mother's house in Brisbane for a while, and I was committing, going every now and then to New Govardhan, but I couldn't commit myself to actually become a official member, or to live in a temple again, because that was pretty traumatic. I was asked to leave Sydney Temple at the time. Now I don't blame anyone for it, because I actually prayed to the deities, please get me out of here. And they made the arrangement through the devotees. So, but at the same time, I still was a bit bitter about it. In fact, on occasion I felt a little bit suicidal. I thought, well, this is our life, Christian consciousness, the movement, and I can't really go back there with the tail between my legs, and actually acquiesce to what I feel is maybe injustice, or not injustice so much, but hypocrisy or compromise or something like that. So then a sannyasi invited me to Ocean Shores. Then I went and stayed with Jayadama for a while, and then I stayed with my mother again in Brisbane for a while, and I got a phone call from Lagudi. Why don't you come down here? I felt, well, maybe I'm actually a bit welcome. I'd heard from via a second-hand source that Ramai Swami had said, he's trying to come back. So it sounded all a little bit positive. So I finally wound up back at New Govardhan. I was living in the back of a station wagon. An old station wagon which was parked down in a shed down the bottom. So it was in a low-lying spot where the Gurukul used to be, and Bhaskara had built, the Gurukul had moved to the top of a hill, and Bhaskara had built a shed there. So I was just camping in there. And one time I was on my way down to, the last time I left Brisbane, I was on my way down to New Govardhan, and I hadn't really made the positive decision to move on to the property. Because you see, when you're living in a temple or a community, there are obligations on both sides, but one could, you're really at the whim of the management, and if for some reason or other one doesn't see eye to eye, then it's adios. So it's pretty hard to live out there, on your own. Prabhupada discouraged it. He said if anyone thinks they can become Krishna conscious outside of the association of the Krishna consciousness movement or something, they're living in illusion. But at the same time, Prabhupada did say, if you have some disagreement with your God brothers, you never mind. So long as you continue to follow the principles, you're still my disciple. And elsewhere he says, even if you're living in the temple, if your mind is elsewhere, then, you're not really living in the temple. So, I broke my windscreen on the way down. It was bad weather, a bit drizzly, and I camped out in the car for the night, got a second-hand windscreen put in, cruised into New Govardhan, got there in the evening. During the night it rained a lot. I got up in the middle of the night. I'd heard that sometimes it floods there. I went down to the bridge, looked underneath. No, the water's okay down there. Got up in the morning, went to Mangalatik, must admit there was a bit of water around. And the thongs sort of, it's hard to find the thongs, it seemed like they'd floated away, but the spot I was camped in was a bit of a depression, right, so the water was running in. Chanting rounds in the tumper room, after some time he said, I think we better have a look, see what's going on out there. So we went over, looked over, and it was all water everywhere. It took us half an hour just to get back down to the White House. Ligety knew the route, how to get across the creek, which was now a raging current. And the White House is on a bit of an island, and the shed that I had the car camped in was, well, the car was completely underwater. It was a write-off. So that was it. I was there at New Gopinatha.